Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsajanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Please repeat after me. The verses 11 and 12, which we did last time. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyan Anvashocastvam Pragyavadangscha bhashase Gatasu nagatasunscha Nanu shochanti panditaha Natvevaham jatu nasam Natvam neme janadhipa Nachaiva na bhavishyama Sarve vayamatah param. So Sri Krishna has started teaching Arjuna and the central doctrine of the immortality of the soul, that we are not mere creatures of flesh and blood fated to be born yesterday and die tomorrow. That there is to us a core of existence of spiritual self which is immortal, which is not born with the birth of the body, which does not age with the aging of the body, which does not fall prey to disease or decay with the body, and which does not die with the passing away of the body. That self we are. This is the central teaching. If there's one thing you take away from the Bhagavad Gita, it's the doctrine of the immortality of the self. I like that beautiful example of the wave. I often use it. A very cute example. Imagine in the Atlantic Ocean, a little wave is born, and as little waves do, it makes other little wave friends, and it goes to wave school maybe. But very soon, life is not all fun and games, because life is, of course, first of all, very wet, being a wave. But then it finds some other waves are mean to it, some are friendly, and there are some waves so big, and the little wave looks at them and thinks, oh, they are fantastic. I wish I could be like them. I'll never be like them. Envy, And there are other waves which are smaller than it. Maybe there are bubbles and foam, and the little wave looks at them and thinks, what losers? Contempt. And then the worst of all problems comes, that it sees the shore rushing up, the Atlantic shore rushing up, maybe Long Island or something coming up, and it looks in horror and asks its friends, what's happening there? Oh, that's where waves go to die. What? I'm going to die? Yes. No, I don't want to die, but you have to. Everybody has to die. You go and crash against the shore and you die. And he's horrified. It's the inevitability of death, the fear of death. But luckily, there is a wave Gita class going on, and is fortunate enough to go there, and he hears that yes, waves die, but then we are actually not waves. Essentially, we have this wave form, but essentially we are water. There is something called water, which this water, the water does not die. You go and slam into the rocks there, you just lose the wave form. You are water, you're still water. You're spray now, you're foam now, you're water vapor, whatever you are. You are always this water which does not die. And after some time, the wave realizes what water is. And look at the results. First of all, it realizes, oh, all of them, the big, huge wave which I was jealous of, that's also water, I am water. And the little wave I was contemptuous of, we are exactly the same water in me and in that wave. There is no jealousy, no envy or contempt. And greatest of all, that fear of death is completely gone. It's a change of form, from a wave form to maybe spray or foam or whatever, change of name. And yet I remain exactly the same. Not only that, another great thing which comes is, as water, as wave, I'm separate from each wave. That is another wave and that's another wave and I am a wave. But as water, all waves are me. I alone am in all waves are in me. Sarvabhuteshu chatmanam, sarvabhutani chatmani. All beings are in the self, the existence, consciousness, bliss. And that I as that existence, consciousness, bliss, I am in all beings. So that realization comes. So it's a very nice example. And by the way, examples have their limitations. So don't think that, yeah, but the big wave still has more water. I may be water, but that's the limitation of the example. Well, from the point of view of Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss, there is no more or less. It is one indivisible being. It's not more, somebody has more Brahman, Sri Ramakrishna has more Brahman, I'm little less Brahman, lower grade. No. We are all the same Brahman. And not that we are parts of the same Brahman or the same type of thing. There is no difference of type. The philosophy, they'll say type token difference. There is no type token difference here. It is one reality. We are exactly that. All of it. Totally. Completely. Got me started on my favorite subject. But Sri Krishna has introduced it in a very simple way. You are not the body. You are the one in the body. In fact, Vedanta makes a distinction between body, mind, and the self. So, this changing body and inside the embodied one, which is a changing mind also. Intellect, mind, memory, these are also changing. And you are the consciousness in which the mind is operating, and through the mind the body is experienced, and so on. That is what he has taught. And very poetic language. He says, it is not that there was ever a time when I was not. It's not that there ever was a time when you were not. Not that there was ever a time when these kings, assembled warriors and kings, were not. Nor indeed will there be a time when they will not be. You see, we are all here right now, there's no doubt. Arjuna has no doubt that we are all here. Krishna is there, Arjuna is there, all the assembled friends and enemies are here. But our question is, where did we exist before the birth of this body? Our question is there anything after the death of this body? So Krishna says, yes, this is the eternal truth of all religion. All religion says there is something which was there, you were there before the birth of this body, and there is something that lasts beyond the death of the body. To be precise, from a Vedantic perspective, it's not just the Atman which outlasts the death of the body. The mind also outlasts the death of the body. So the mind, which is the repository of experiences, of tendencies, samskaras, vasanas, that which goes from lifetime to lifetime. So it's the sukshma sharira, the subtle body. Mind is a part of subtle body. I'm using the word mind in a general sense. In Vedanta, you'll have so many components. What I'm saying, I'm just saying mind, but actually if you say what exactly is the subtle body, they will talk about 19 parts. 5 sense organs. Not that the nose and the eyes and the ears will go with you after death. The powers of the sense organs, the ability to see, hear, smell, taste, touch. The 5 sense organs, the 5 motor organs, the 5 pranas, that means the vital forces, there are 5 of them. And then the 4 functions of what we call the inner instrument, antakarana. Mind, intellect, ego, memory. Mana, buddhi, chitta, hankar. All together 19. 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4. If you say, I forgot that, don't worry, it will come again. Many times over. So, that does not die with the death of the body. That does not die with the death of the body. That goes on, when this body dies, that goes on to other worlds and takes up other bodies. So that is the teaching. And the Atman does not go anywhere. The pure self, existence, consciousness, bliss, it's like the sun ever shining. It's always there. So that is the teaching. Now, the next verse, 13th verse. Dehino asmin yatha dehe, Dehino asmin yatha dehe, Kaumaram yauvanam jaram, Kaumaram yauvanam jaram, Tatha dehantara praptirdhi, Tatha dehantara prapti. Actually, that is wrong. Tatha dehantara prapti, Tatha dehantara prapti, Dhirastatra namuhyati, Dhirastatra namuhyati. So what does it mean? Even as this embodied self, that means you in this body, attains in this body childhood, youth and old age, so does it attain another body. The wise man does not get deluded at this. It's a very well-known verse on the Bhagavad Gita. And usually it's the time you get to hear it is when somebody dies. So this is traditional, the Hindus will have a Gita recital when somebody passes away. And so these are some of the verses which are chanted. So it's very well-known. It is a peculiar resonance with me because of a childhood memory. I remember when I was a little kid, our neighbor, they had a son who was much older than me, but I knew him. He was about 10 or 12 years older than me. So at that time, this young man was 19 years or 20 years old. And they went to a college picnic, and he drowned and died in the sea. So here is this neighbor family mourning. You see, loss of a baby is traumatic, but loss of a grown-up young boy or girl, whom you have raised through childhood, that's very deeply, deeply scarring. So I still remember, I think they were chanting this verse or some of these verses, and my dad had sent me to their house with a copy of one of the volumes of Swami Vivekananda's complete works. So I just have that kind of memory and this verse, So what does it say? Just as the embodied being. So who is this embodied being? Sounds very philosophical. Huh? You, here, us, you and him and her and I, we who feel that I am in this body. What is embodied? We who consider the sentient being here, which considers this body to be mine, my body, or I am this body, or this is my body. This is called the embodied being, the one in this body. That one, just as it experiences childhood, kaumaram, youth, yauvanam, jara, old age. Look how they went straight from youth to old age. That means I didn't think they had the concept of middle age in those. So, just as we experience, how do we experience? Not by itself. The sentient being is not a child, or consciousness is not a child. Consciousness is not a young person or an old person, because of the changes in the body. Imagine, right now, in this lifetime itself, such vast changes we have undergone. The child's body and the body you see yourself in now, vast changes. In structure, in appearance, vast changes. And the mind also, in this body, as we move from babyhood to childhood to teenage to youth, the mind undergoes so much changes. You know so much more, you learn so much more, your attitudes change, what you want, your perception of life, vast changes come over us. And yet, this is the point, yet we identify ourselves as the same person. I was that entirely different body. I was in that. Doctors tell us in 7 years, I think every cell of the body, 7 years or some such number they give, every cell in the body is gone, except I think some nerve cells, they remain. And every cell in the body is, not suddenly, not at the end of 7 years, I'm going for a full body replacement. Over 7 years, slowly. So by the end of 7 years or whatever, 8 years, 10 years, even the particular cells, those specific cells are not there. we are actually continuously shedding. It may sound very messy, but we are. Luckily, we don't see any of it. Those, what do they call it? Forensic detectives. One of the ways they catch criminals is that they say the human beings are not aware how much clues they leave behind everywhere they go. So much of our body cells we are continuously shedding into the environment. So we are in a continuous process of change. What Sri Krishna is doing here is, notice what he's doing. First, he intimated to us the nature of the real self. That existence, consciousness, bliss, which the Atman, which is neither born nor dies, it does not age, decay, nor is subject to disease. That one is the self, is a real self. But now you also must appreciate the nature of the non-self, the mind and the body. Now he's talking about the mind-body complex, how it changes. It's not you, but appreciate what it does. It changes. This is the nature of the non-self, what you are not. The body, what you are not, that changes. Dramatic changes. And because of those changes, I identify myself as a child, as a boy, as a teenager, as a young man, as a middle-aged man, as an old man. But not because of me, the consciousness, because of the changes in the body. These transitions are so clear, so dramatic, and yet we identify ourselves across these transitions. Now what Krishna is saying is, extend it a little further. Just like that, he says, this particular body also will be, you'll transit into another body. Dehantara prapti. Dehantara, other body. Deha means body. Dehantara, next body, another body. This body gets worn out. The nature of the non-self, that the body, one thing is it changes dramatically. Second thing is it gets worn out. Wear and tear. And like clothes, you wash them, keep them carefully. Then after some time they are old and you can't wear them on formal occasions. You can't take it out. And then finally they are discarded. And you get a new set of clothes. He will use that example a little later. Krishna will use that example. Just like discarding an old pair of trousers or something, you discard the soul in this body. Here he means the Jivatma. Atman plus subtle body. It discards an unusable body and moves on. Why be unhappy? You're going to get a new model, improved. Yeah? iPhone 8. So you move on. All your data is transferred into the next body. So this is the teaching. Need not be afraid, need not be unhappy at it. Yes, it's a little more dramatic than going from childhood to teenage. Although I wonder, and somebody said, I wonder how we survived our teenage years. So a little more dramatic than our lifetime changes, but it's still just a change. You are still there. Notice, your friend is talking and then his phone, he says hello, hello, and he looks at the phone. Oh, my phone died. Your friend didn't die. The phone died. Right? You're talking with your friend. After that, you can't hear him anymore. Do you think that he's dead or the phone is dead? Phone is dead. But because the phone is dead, you can't hear him anymore. If it was a video call, you can't see him anymore. Exactly like that, when the body collapses, when the body dies, the claim here is, in Vedanta, that you continue to exist. That person continues to exist. But you cannot contact that person anymore through that body, nor can that person contact you. Cannot speak, cannot hear you, cannot move around. So phone is dead. That's all. Until the guy gets a replacement. Only thing is, in this case, when the replacement comes, he has forgotten all about you. Your number is erased. It's a different number. You don't know what the number is, and so you can't get in touch. Dehantara prapti. All right, ask.
Can you explain what's the exact things which do get transferred versus what? Because memories don't get transferred, but tendencies do. So, what is the distinction?
Everything gets transferred according to one claim, because it is said that in the last life, yogis recall all the memories of past lives. So it is there, but not recoverable. We cannot access them. Just like The claim is that there are many, I guess most of the traces of our childhood, babyhood are still there in this brain. We just can't access it. And the proof of that is suddenly sometimes you access it. And there were experiments, I think Penfield's experiments where they stimulated parts of the brain, many memories which were simply not experienced by that person for many years, decades. They got vivid recall when that part was stimulated. Which is neurological proof that, things which we would not expect, they are there. But we can't, normally they are not available for recall for us now. And the claim is that all of this gets transferred to the, with the subtle body, it goes on to the next. But then what is recoverable? The ones which we see are recovered are tendencies. So if you get a PhD in neuroscience, unfortunately, you will not be born as a baby with a PhD in neuroscience. So all that knowledge, the specific knowledge is not either not there or at least not recoverable. But what is recovered, what gets manifested, what is found in the next life are tendencies, desires, certain proclivities, tendencies. So in some extreme cases, it becomes startling. In most of our cases, it's mixed. We get a mix of good and bad tendencies from past lives. But in extreme cases, like say a prodigy, for example. So there's no way of explaining how that comes about. Somebody has extraordinary capacities in music or mathematics or chess or something like that. And in a few cases, there have been cases of recovered memories from past lives. There have been documentation. But some scientists would not take that seriously. But there's a lot of data on that. Yeah, so all of these are passed on. Physical body, dead. Brain, nervous system, all gone here. Certain tendencies, characteristics are expressed in the next life. So what goes on, that is the subtle body only survives. The subtle body survives death. It sort of, let's put it this way, it curls up into like what we experience in deep sleep. Blankness. And then when it gets a new body, either in other worlds or when you come back here, it starts working again. And part of our samskaras, depending on the body we get, part of our past experiences, the recordings, the samskaras, they get activated. Not all of what we are is expressed right now. What is our past karma has given us this body, and what is suitable to this body and this environment is getting expressed now. We are ancient creatures. Even the most newborn babies also have a very ancient creature. Sometimes you can see it in their eyes. Yes. But by the way, the mind is very closely connected with the body and nervous system. So as the body and nervous system grow, the mind also expresses, more faculties come into play. As they decay and deteriorate, the mind also becomes feeble and deteriorates. Although for yogis, for highly spiritual persons, their mind doesn't seem to be touched by the deterioration in the body. They seem to be above the general degeneration of the body. So even I've seen, I saw Swami Ranganathananji, Swami Bhuteshanji, year after year I saw them. 98 years, 99 years, 97 years. So alert, so perceptive. It's like luminous minds. 98-year-old body. And this I've seen again and again and again. So I've seen so these are well-known figures, but I've seen a Swami who was in his 90s, who was paralyzed in both legs. He was blind in both eyes. And he lay like that helplessly for the last maybe 10, 15 years of his life. And I saw him in the hospital like that. You haven't seen a happier person. That day when I saw this person, this Swami, I realized what it means to be bodiless. Bodiless does not mean to transcend the body, doesn't mean to come out of the body like a puff of smoke or something like that. It means being in the body, using the body, remaining in the body, embodied, and yet not affected by the body. We get depressed, a little scratch here, a little ache here. We get depressed, we get anxious. Second opinion, what's going wrong with me? The attitude should be, let the body stay for 100 years, let it die today, now, itself. Exactly the same to me. At least say it with conviction. You'll see how much strength you get. So I've seen this in many cases. Then Krishna uses the word dhiras tatra na muhyati. Dhira, the word dhira will come again and again. The word dhira, it's there in many Indian languages also. It means a patient person, a solid person, like a strong person or a heroic person, a strong person basically. Here, however, dhira has a special meaning. Shankaracharya in his commentary says, dhiraha dhiman. Dhiman means the one endowed with this knowledge of the self. Viveki, I'll translate it this way. The one who is able to deploy this knowledge of Vedanta to overcome the sufferings of life. Literally, dhira is equal to dhiman, one possessed of knowledge. What knowledge? Vedantic knowledge. Not only possessed of knowledge, is able to deploy it in life. So when there is old age and disease and unhappiness and loneliness and all of that, you still have the power to rise above it. Knowledge and the ability to use it in one's own life. Like I mentioned that Swammi who was paralyzed and blind and still. That is dhiman, that is dhira. This is dhira tatra namuhyati. The one possessed with this knowledge is not deluded, is not shaken. When? Just as you transit from childhood to teenage, to youth, to middle age, to old age, and it's natural, nothing to be upset about. Similarly, the transition from one life to another, from one body to another. 14. So this verse is, look at the words in the verse, dehina, of the embodied. Asmin yatha dehe, as in this body. The embodied one, you, as in this body. Kaumaram, childhood. Yovanam, youth. And includes middle age also. Jara, old age. Just as you experience. You, the embodied one, you experience these states because of the changes in your body. Similarly, tatha, in the same way. Dehantara praptihi, you attain to a new body. And so, the one possessed of this knowledge of Vedanta, should be able to deploy it, be not shaken by death. Swami Vivekananda, what a powerful definition of religion. Each soul is potentially divine. And the goal is to manifest this divinity within us. Manifest means not only to know it, but also to live it. To live it means to face up to the challenges of life. That is what he calls dhira here. 14th. Matra sparshastu kaunteya, matra sparshastu kaunteya, shitoshna sukha dukkhada, shitoshna sukha dukkhada, agama paino nitya, agama paino nityan, tanti tikshasva bharata, tanti tikshasva bharata. O son of Kunti, sense contacts with objects result in heat and cold, pleasure and pain. They are subject to coming and going and are transient. Therefore, O descendant of Bharata, just endure them. Suppose the question is, all right, I understand that we survive. Suppose I believe this also, that we do survive death, just as we continue from childhood to youth to old age and all. And in the same way, we survive death and we go on to other lives. Okay, I understand that. But in this life, it hurts. Pain hurts. There is physical pain. There is emotional pain. There is unhappiness in this life. What about that? Even if we do persist throughout from life to life, we still suffer here. What's the solution to that? And Sri Krishna says, no solution. You have to put up with it. But why? How? That's the beauty of it. Put up with it, of course, we have to. But how? Matra sparshastu Kante, O son of Kunti, he says, the word, let me explain the word first. Matra and sparsha. Matra sparsha, the 14th verse. What is the meaning of the word matra? It means sense organs. Miyante gyayante vishaya abhiriti matra. Ma literally means to measure. So from there, miyante, to measure. That means to know. Whether it is form or sound or smell or taste or touch. When you can know them, that's called measuring, knowing them, getting a grasp on them. That by which you know these things. What are they? Sense organs. So they are called matra. They are called matra. So we have eyes and ears and nose and tongue and skin. And sparsha literally means touch. Here it means the things which are touched. That means the objects. What do the eyes touch? It's a way of putting it. The eyes contact form, rupa. What do the ears, within quotes, touch? Sound, shabda. And nose, gandha, fragrance or smell. Tongue, jivha, rasa, taste. Skin, twak. Twak means skin. What do they touch? It's sparsha, touch, literally heat and cold and pressure, warmth. So that's what the skin senses. The objects which are sensed are called sparsha. And the instruments with which we sense these different objects, they are called matra. A slightly different interpretation, but coming to the same thing, is matra means the functions of the senses. Not just the eyes, but the functioning of the eyes. Indriya vrittihi, they say. The functioning of the eyes, which gives us the input of seeing. So sparsha here means the experience corresponding to that function. First meaning, the sense organs and the objects, eyes and form. Second meaning, the functioning of the eyes and the experience of seeing. Basically same thing, little more intricate. The functioning of the ears and the experience of hearing, which we are having right now. So this is what gives us knowledge of the world. And what it generates various experiences. Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. It says experiences shita, cold, ushna, heat. So now we are making a transition. It's a little cool outside, and everybody who comes in says, it's so warm in here. So heat and cold. How did you know that? Matra sparsha. Skin, temperature outside, and you get an experience. Pleasant experience, unpleasant experience. Too much cold, unpleasant. Too much heat, unpleasant. Just right, pleasant. These are pleasant and unpleasant experiences generated by the functionings of the sense organs, contact of the sense organs with their respective objects. They generate this. They will. This is the very nature of the machine. This is the very nature of the not self, anatma. They will generate such experiences. They come, note their nature. They come and go. They arise and cease. Continuously in an endless flow as long as you are awake, and in dreams too. They arise and cease. As long as mind and sense organs are working, you will have a series of you will have it, inevitably. Agamapai, coming and going, arising and ceasing. And therefore, anityaha, transient, impermanent. Every experience is impermanent. What do you have to do then? Tan titikshasva, forbear, bear with them, O Arjuna. You say, what kind of solution is that? It's a very deep, deep solution. I was just thinking about it. This word, titiksha, it means forbearance. It means patience. Shankaracharya in his Vivek Chudamani says, this is for whom? A spiritual aspirant, for a spiritual seeker. It's a very great quality, a profound quality to be cultivated. I was just thinking about it. So many thoughts came to my mind. I was in the library at Bryant Park. So sitting and thinking about this and studying this, and Shankaracharya says, Sahanam sarva dukkhanam apratikara purvakam chinta vilapa rahitam satitiksha nigadyate in Vivek Chudamani. What is this forbearance? He defines it. What do you have to do? All kinds of miseries. Forbearing pleasure, everybody can do. I'm just putting up with a lot of pleasure. No. It's the unpleasant side of life which disturbs us, which makes us restless. Forbear. There's a reason for that. There's a spiritual reason for that. Putting up with all of that without desperately trying to remedy situation. Always remember common sense. That is taken for granted. If I'm very sick, I need to go to a doctor and take the medicines. But after that, there will be a period when I have to put up with unpleasantness. Unpleasant medicine, unpleasant treatment, and unpleasant pain. So, put up with that. And how do you put up? With a scowl? No. Chinta vilapa rahitam. Without complaining, without anxiety. Be relaxed about it. Let it be. Let it come, let it be, let it go. You be relaxed about it. This is called titiksha. Sri Ramakrishna considered it one of the greatest qualities. He called it in Bengali shodhyo kara. To forbear in life, whatever happens in life, in relationships, monetary, financially, health-wise, do what you have to do. Be active. Remedy the situation, but don't be anxious and don't give it thought. Don't dwell upon it. Don't regret it. Don't agonize over it. Why will you not agonize over it? Because it is impermanent. They come and go. Then how do you treat impermanent things? Welcome, stay, goodbye. Neither resist nor cling. Neither resist nor cling to impermanent things. It does no good. That which is to come will come. That which is to go will go. Again, always. So I don't have to go to the doctor. I don't have to take medical treatment. No, of course not. You have to do whatever. And you see, Sri Ramakrishna would say, in Bengali, there's the letter Sha. There are three of them, and they are all pronounced in the same way. In Sanskrit, Sa, Sha, Sha. In Bengali, we pronounce it Sha, Sha, Sha. All of them are the same pronunciation. But one meaning of that is forbearing. In Hindi, what you call sahana, sahan shakti, that means to forbear. So three letters, and they all are pronounced in a particular way, and they all mean also there's a second meaning to it, that is forbearance. So he would say that. He would make a pun on it. It makes sense in Bengali, not in other languages. The pun goes like this. Sha, 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 je shai, she rai, je na shai, tar na shai. Literally translated, without any of the pun effects, special effects. It means forbear, forbear, forbear. Patience, patience, patience. The one who forbears will last. The one who does not forbear will be destroyed. I was reading a book on the Buddha's teachings, and Buddhist book. One of the greatest qualities which Buddha praised was patience. Shantideva in the Bodhicharya Avatara, a very well-known Mahayana text, he says the root, love, compassion, patience. Love and compassion are less important than patience, he says. When you have patience, love and compassion will come of themselves. I mean, there's a lot of research being done right now. There's a psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, H-A-I-D-T. He's very well known in the United States. One of the things he did was, the experiment was an experiment in compassion. So, two groups of students. They were, one group was asked to read something. They were in the Harvard Divinity School or another divinity school, maybe Princeton Divinity School, somewhere. So they were told that you have to read this section and prepare a sermon on it and go there and you have to deliver the sermon. Of course, that's not really what's going to happen. One group was given the story of the Good Samaritan who helps people. on the wayside? So they prepared it, and they walked across the lawn to the other building where they were supposed to give the sermon. Of course, there was nobody there. When you go across there, there'll be somebody to tell you the experiment is over, go home. What was there was, on a bench in that lawn, was somebody pretending to have a stomach ache. As that person, the seminarian, would walk past, all engrossed and trying to remember the points he has written for the talk on compassion, this person would sort of, collapse in pain and sort of groan and moan and collapse like this. Now the aim was to see how many stopped and out of concern, how many asked if they could do something. Almost nobody did. They were too busy about the talk they were going to give. Some did. And it did not make a difference what story they had read, whether it was a story about compassion or some other story, other parable. So the result of the experiment was, it's not so much knowledge that you have to be compassionate that makes you compassionate. Rather, it is that calmness and slowness and quietness where you pay attention to somebody else that makes you compassionate. If you notice the suffering of another person, that was the conclusion. If you notice the suffering of another person, in most cases we have as human beings, we have, they call it mirror neurons and so on. So we are built for sympathy. So that's why they say that sometimes in places where life is slower, in villages and smaller towns, people are more compassionate. It also could be that people know each other. Whereas when life is very fast, classic example, of course, Manhattan, there's no time to be compassionate. People are so engrossed in their own minds and their own anxieties, they don't notice what's going on both sides. So patience. Yeah.
So I had a couple of questions about patience.
Yes.
One is that there is some literature in psychology which says that bottling up your feelings or suppressing your unpleasant reactions can be detrimental in the long term. So what are your views or Vedanta's views on that? That is one. And the other one is, it makes sense to think about patience in these terms when thinking about an illness or something, or some misfortune that you cannot attribute to somebody else. But sometimes people, how would patience be a virtue when it is versus an adversary or somebody who's being unjust or against injustice in general?
Right. So that's exactly where patience comes into play. The Buddhist book I was reading made an important point. Patience does not mean taking things slow or letting things happen to you. Patience means not being defeated. Adverse circumstances, people who are treating you badly, people or a health problem or a financial problem, whatever. Don't admit defeat. That is a sign of patience. Not to collapse and say, I'm being patient, let whatever is going to happen, it'll just going to happen. No. To retain energy, to be up and doing, calmly, to get back to shake up the dust yourself off, get back into the struggle, calmly, without reacting. So, without reacting does not mean you will not do anything. You will do what is necessary. That's what I'm trying to answer your question. So, for example, you said bottling up feelings. Now, bottling up feelings is not good. Repression is not good. But channeling feelings is very good. Reaction means something happens and I react immediately to it. Somebody says something nasty, I said something nasty back to that person. That's a reaction. But I don't say anything. I try to engage with that person constructively or ignore him and go about my business. That will not harm. That's better. That's much better. Immediate reaction is what is to be avoided. The way Swami Vivekananda defined patience, very interesting. He would always define in a positive way. Now, this is the answer to your question. Anything he would define in a positive way. For example, humility. We think humility means being low and accepting and being humble. You know what is Swami Vivekananda's definition of humility? He said, humility does not consist in being a doormat. Humility means seeing the greatness in the other person. seeing good and greatness in other person, that is being humble. How did he define patience? He talked about patience, for him was strength. Not in terms of patience, it's strength. And what is strength? Not to thrash the other person. He says strength is to stop reaction. What a deep definition of strength. It's easy to fidget. It takes strength to sit still. It's easy to reply immediately. It takes strength to hold back. It's easy to think badly of others or become anxious about a particular situation. A bad, worrisome situation has emerged. Immediately anxiety. That anxiety does nothing except create heart disease. That anxiety does nothing. It only creates harm. It's a weakness of the mind. The mind is an instrument. It just churns away helplessly in anxiety. I will not be anxious. I will do what is to be done. I will think what is to be thought. I will say what is to be said. But no, I will not entertain anxiety or stress. No. To whatever extent possible. That not reacting, physical level, verbal level, mental level, he says that is strength. And that strength he defines as patience. That's a very good idea actually. He says when you drive a chariot, to let the horses run amok, is that strength? Or to hold the reins and pull back the horses and guide it along a particular direction, is that strength? It's more strength to hold back and then guide it. To gain mastery of the body, of the speech, and of the thoughts in the mind, that is strength. And that strength and patience it will be manifested as patience. All the great men, they might seem impatient because they are very energetic. But being energetic and impatient are two different things. Tremendous energy, but continuous, the patience to apply that energy in a particular chosen direction, that leads to greatness. I remember a beautiful song by Kabir Das. Some of you may have heard it. I'll tell you this. I looked it up actually. I remembered it today, then I looked it up. I'd heard it many years ago. Man lago yar fakiri mein. Some of you may have heard this. Oh my mind, be attached or take to the monastic life, the ascetic life, the simple life. My mind has fallen in love with the simple life. My mind has fallen in love with the free life. A fakir is an unattached, like an ascetic, a lover of God and not attached to anything in the world. Oh my mind, he calls his mind his friend. Oh my mind, my buddy. Fall in love with the free life. Fall in love with the simple life. Jo sukh paave Ram bhajan mein, so sukh nahi amiri mein. The joy, the bliss that you get in repeating the name of the Lord Rama, it is your mantra, the name of God, the chanting the name of God. That joy is not there in being wealthy and powerful. Man lago yar fakiri mein. Oh my mind, take to the free life, take to the holy life. Bhala bura sabka sun lije, kar gujran garibi mein. Listen to all the good and bad which the world throws at you. See, contact with the senses generates pleasure and pain, heat and cold. Not only heat and cold, pleasure and pain, it generates honor and dishonor, success and failure, hope and despair. Be serene thou in all of this. Good and bad the world throws at you. Live the humble life. Literally, garibi means, kar gujran garibi mein means the poor life. Poor, there's a very beautiful Christian phrase, poor in spirit. Poor in spirit means not with a broken spirit, no. It means low and quiet and humble. But why I'm telling you this, the end of this song is very beautiful. At the end, he says, Aakhir ye tan khak milega. Kahe phirat magruri mein. Very touching. Towards the last refrain of the last quarter of the song, it says, very soon this body will pass away into the dust. It will merge into dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If you're a Hindu, the body will be burned and this much ashes will be left. I have literally seen, because we have a tradition of cremating the monks who have passed away. And so I've seen this much dust, this much ashes. It's put in a little bowl and then little earthen pot and then floated on the Ganges, on the Ganga, which is next to the monastery. That's what remains. Or if you're buried, the body decomposes back into the earth. Dust to dust. Why do you go around with so much ego? आखिर ये तन खाक मिलेगा, काहे फिरत मगरूरी में. Why walk around the earth with so much ego? In a blink of an eye, you'll be gone, back to dust. Where is this ego coming from? And then Kabir concludes. He says, Kahat Kabir, the usual way, Suno bhai sadho, O spiritual seekers, O seekers of God, listen to what Kabir says. Sahib mile saburi mein. The Lord my God is attained through patience. Saburi, the word, means contentment, means patience. Sabr means to be patient. Hold on, hold on, hold on. There's nothing like holding on. Yes.
Mentioning the ego brings up a question for me. And this may be my misinterpretation, but in many spiritual traditions, if not most, it seems that human beings are viewed as the top life
Yes.
over animals and plants. And yet it seems like we're the only ones who are at risk of being dominated or enslaved by our egos. And so I guess my question is, wouldn't that make us put us in a position where it would behoove us to be pupils to other species that are less ego-driven?
True, but they are instinct-driven. Here we have the possibility of freedom. The first time, the possibility of freedom. And so we are like a bridge. Human beings are like a bridge. So this human birth. Remember, we are sentient beings, whether in the body of a dog or a plant or a human body or a divine body. We are sentient beings. In this body, it's like a bridge towards the higher life. So that's why. But a beautiful conclusion. The Lord, Sahib, he uses the word Sahib for Lord. So the Lord my God is attained through patience. Saburi mein. Stay in patience. In poverty, in humility, stay there and you will get the Lord. We become impatient. Impatience, pride, anxiety, they all go together. I'm going to start at the top. I remember there's a story which Sri Ramakrishna used to tell. A young man came to the ashram to become a spiritual person, and he asked, what can I do here? Well, who lives here? Well, the guru lives here with his disciples. So what does a disciple do? Well, the disciple has to get up very early in the morning and has to meditate and has to clean the temple and the ashram and has to attend classes and study and exams and memorize Sanskrit verses and serve the guru and go out and collect firewood and alms for the ashram and so on and so forth. Long list of duties. And what does the guru do? Oh, he gives a few talks. And then this man said, then I'll be the guru. It's not so fast. This is a story which Sri Ramakrishna says. That everybody wants to be the guru. Nobody wants to be a disciple. It's actually much harder to be a good disciple than a good guru. I remember once in the ashram when I was a novice, a young man came to join the order. A simple young man from a village. He had just read a few books about Vivekananda. And so we asked him, so why do you want, what do you want to do? Why do you want to become a monk? He said, then I'll go to the World Parliament of Religions to teach Vedanta. And we told him, sorry, you are about 100 years too late. This was back in the 1990s. More than 100 years ago, Swami Vivekananda has already done that. So what he has left for you is to clean the temple and cook and... Yes.
Swami, this path of patience, this
Yes.
path of forbearance,
Hmm.
it's so difficult in, present times where some other virtues like aggressiveness or dynamism, which is almost equated with aggressiveness, especially for certain professions, is considered really an asset. So how does one really balance it in
Remember, dynamism is not against patience.
aggressiveness, like for instance,
So
marketing,
yeah,
sales,
I know.
etc.?
You notice how Vivekananda defines patience as strength. Notice how you find patience in see, I just mentioned patience is not being defeated, for example, when I say. So, that resilience. These qualities will serve you well everywhere. Even in any of the professions that you talked about. The qualities you're talking about are middle management qualities. Those are the guys who want to prove themselves. You'll see those are at the top at any organization. You will find some of these qualities there. But remember, this is not a management development workshop. And these are qualities for a spiritual seeker. What will you get by these qualities? What will you get by those qualities? You can climb a little further up the corporate ladder. But Kabir has the last word. Very soon, handful of dust. Nothing else. Yeah. I know this story that a counselor, he was walking with his client who was an executive and very stressed in a corporate job. And he said, I have no time. I can only, whatever you say, this session, this practice, I have no time for that. You don't understand. Day and night I'm busy. And they were walking through a graveyard. And this counselor said, look at those people. All those graves, the people lying there. In their time, they were among the busiest people in their lives. Yeah. That's what's waiting for you. Very, very soon. Very soon. No, you should always have that attitude. Today or 100 years later. No anxiety on that score. Ashtavakra says that. Tishtatu. Let it stay for 100 years. Or let it go today itself. You have to be equally serene in both ways. So not concerned. Then what will you do? Do whatever you have to do. Then see what is important in life. It's the only one thing will be important in life then, this one. Imitation of Christ, a very beautiful book. Swami Vivekananda loved it. It was written by a medieval Christian monk, Thomas à Kempis. There, this very thing is talked about. How do I find peace? The writer conceives of Christ talking to the disciple. So this is like he imagines this. So the disciple asks Christ, how do I get peace? Peace. And Christ says to the disciple, says, if you want peace, my child, then do these 4 things. Now compare these 4 with what you just said. The aggressive, dynamic, corporate ladder climbing, no time kind of tense, high achiever, A-type personality. What does Christ say? 4 things. And you will be shocked. He says, if you want peace, 4 things. 1, always try to have less rather than more. 50% of Manhattan finished here. 180 degrees opposite of what you're trying to do. Remember Christ's condition. If you want peace, he says, I'm going to hold on to that. If you want more rather than less, then you will not get peace. You will get everything else. If you want peace, always seek, make an effort, work hard to have less rather than more. Now you're seeing many books about the simple life coming out. Those books themselves, you will have no space for them, so much. First. Second one is even more difficult. Always seek to be last rather than first. Even more difficult. What do parents teach their children? What do you mean? My son won't get into an Ivy League college? Think about it, what it means. The kind of mentality there. Not that he's trying his hard to be a loser. That's the first thing that a person in Manhattan will try to say. Oh, you want to be a loser? No. One thing which you want, say, suppose you want God realization. There, no compromise. In everything else, you go ahead. I'm not competing against you. Be last rather than first. This is just a play on the biblical assurance. Christ says, the last shall be first. Then the third one is even more difficult. If you want peace, even more difficult than this. Always seek to do the will of another rather than your own. Always seek to do the will of another rather than your own. 50% of divorce cases will be solved here itself. They will not end in divorce. The problem will be solved. Let your will be done. Think about it, why not? In most cases, it's a minor difference of opinion, a difference of taste. Always seek to do the will of another rather than your own. If you want peace. And the last one is most important. In all things, learn to accept the will of God. Everything is exactly as God wants it to be, even the most horrible things. To learn to accept that. Do your duty. If you see suffering, if you see problems, do what you have to do. But know that, don't fight against reality. 4 things, if you want peace. We do exactly the opposite. More rather than less. No peace. First rather than last. Let alone last, not even second, always first. How many people can be first? If 1. Yeah, see, that's great. 1. Not great. They say, no, if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. Just a bigger rat than the others. And then the third one, my will, not yours. Immediately no peace. That's the root to almost all the quarrels we have in this world. And the 4th one, acceptance of the will of God. That is called dhiraha, patience, titiksha, forbearance, spiritual forbearance. On purpose I spent a little time on this. What will be the result of all of this? Jesus says in the Imitation of Christ, you will get peace. Krishna says, you will get enlightenment. You will get freedom, moksha, God realization, if you do this. How will you do it? He's not asking you to go and fight the enemy with no weapons at all. He's arming you with the weapons of spiritual knowledge, spiritual practice. Then asking you to practice patience in the face of the ups and downs of life. Try it, a little bit you'll try, you will gain in strength, confidence, and peace of mind. A little bit you try. God will continuously give you opportunities, don't worry. Yeah. Starting right now, the moment you step out, He will give you continuously small and large opportunities. If not spiritual, don't take it in this spirit, then stress, anxiety, grumbling. Swami Ranganathanji used to tell us, if you are a monk, one thing you give up, no grumbling. Don't grumble at anything. Is holding grudges and grumbling, absolutely not. Grumbling, stress, anxiety, annoyance, irritation. This is life. Fear, anxiety, terror. What's going to happen? Nothing much will happen, but terror. And if you take it spiritually, the same problems will remain. They become the cross. Jesus Christ had a cross. We also will get a cross. Suffering. So who wants to be on a cross? You are there anyway. You have been fixed upon it. Recognize it as a cross, spiritual progress, peace of mind, joy, elevation, freedom. Don't recognize it, struggle, endless birth and death. So that's what happens. The result, he says in the 15th verse, we'll read that and stop, because the 16th one, I'll tell you about that later, but first the 15th one. Yang hina vyathayantyete, yam hina vyathayantyete, purusham purusharshabha, purusham purusharshabha, samadukha sukham dhiram, samadukha sukham dhiram, somritattvaya kalpate, amritattvaya kalpate. So what is the result of living like this? O best of men, that wise person whom these do not afflict. That means the person who is not unsettled, doesn't become restless, doesn't become shaken by the cross. Who is serene, who has equanimity in pleasure and pain. Does what has to be done, but serene, calm, not shaken. Is fit for immortality. That one is fit for immortality. That one is fit to be a Jivan Mukta, enlightened while living. So, Yam Hina Vyathayantete, the one who is not troubled by these things, ups and downs, the dualities coming from the contacts with the senses. The best among people, such people. Sama Sukham Dukkham, the one who is serene in misery, things which would have produced misery, things which produce pleasure. In both cases, evenness of mind. That person is Dhiram. See the same word again. Remember Dhiram? One who has this knowledge and can use it in life, can walk the talk. Or at least one who's trying to walk the talk. So amritattvaya kalpate. Great result comes to such a person. Immortality is the result of all of this. Enlightenment, moksha, salvation, whatever you call it. The next verse, 16th one, is one of my favorite, maybe the favorite also in the whole Bhagavad Gita. It is, as one monk in the Himalayas, he told me, he said, "Ye to Gita ki darshanik hriday hai." This is the philosophical heart of the Bhagavad Gita. The next one, which is coming, 16th verse. So I'll spend at least one whole class on it. I'll explain what it means. Then we will go to the original commentary of Shankaracharya. You don't have to get it. I will read out and explain relevant portions from the commentary of Shankaracharya about it. The fundamentals of Advaita Vedanta are there in the 16th verse. He has built up to this. So that we will see next time. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.